Okay, good morning, everybody. Before we start, there's no fire alarm drill anticipated today, so if the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building through the nearest fire exit by following the running man signs above the doors and make your way to the rear of the car park. The organiser of the meeting will tell you when it's safe to return. Toilets are available in the stairwell of the building on each floor landing, and water is available from the water cooler in reception. And finally, please make sure all phones are either muted or switched off, which I will just do because I've learned how to do it now. Right, down and across. There we go. Right. That won't be going off now. So, good morning. I am your chair, Councillor Ollie Davey, and welcome to this Planning Committee meeting on Tuesday, 24th of March, 2026. Sitting to my right is the Vice Chair, Councillor Eileen Wragg, and supporting officers present today are Wendy Ormsby, Development Manager, Damien Hunter, Planning Solicitor, and Wendy Harris, Democratic Services Officer. And the presenting officers for the applications today will be Senior Planning Officers Nigel Barrett, who's here, Andrew Digby, Jill Himsworth, and Wendy Ormsby. And also present is Tom Winters, who's the Economic Development Manager, who is here. He can answer questions regarding the Ottery St Mary application, which is the first one on the agenda. The meeting today is being streamed live to the Council's YouTube account, so I can remind all members and officers contributing to the meeting to use a microphone, or your comments will not be heard. We will now start by doing a roll call of committee members and declarations of interests. Over to you, Wendy.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with yourself as Chair, Councillor Davey.
Yes, I've had some communication, I guess you could call it lobbying, in respect of the Ottery St Mary application. I think we've probably all had that one, a letter just setting out their case. So I think probably I could say that on behalf of all the committee, that we've all had some lobbying there. I've also had quite a lot of communication over the years, actually, with the applicant for the Ebford one, which I think is agenda item 9, 252593 PIP. We've carried on a sort of occasional email conversation over the years about whether Ebford was sustainable or not. So I guess that's...
What bear with the chair, because
yeah,
the councillor just came up then and started telling Wendy something.
Oh,
she's
right.
trying to listen to what you're saying.
Okay.
So I think she can't do two things at once.
No, that's all right.
Okay then, it's debatable.
Yeah, so I guess that would be an... well, Damien, I'm looking to you for advice here. So somebody I've had communication with over the years, we've never actually met. Would that be a
Not a close
other?
association. So
No, other registrable? No,
if
non-registrable
if
interest.
It's not even an interest if you're not a close associate. It's
No.
Somebody you
Okay.
met in passing.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually met him.
Oh, well, then
Yes.
definitely not.
It might be here today, I'm not sure. Okay, that's fine. So, Wendy,
So
on
it's
to
just the items 8 and 9 lobbying. Is that
lobbying on, yes.
8 and 9.
Is it 8? Yes, 8 and 9, correct. Yeah.
It's nothing. Yeah. Sorry.
No, Councillor Hughes hasn't got his card, so I'm going to do his card in a minute, but I'll do the roll call first. Okay, so Vice Chair, Councillor Wragg.
Present, and I suppose it's the same interest, the first one, the Ottery one, although I don't really remember it.
Thank you. Councillor Barlow.
Present, Wendy, and no declarations that I'm aware of.
Councillor Bloxham.
Present, Wendy, no declarations.
Councillor Colin Brown?
Present and no declarations.
Councillor Bethany Collins?
Present, thank you, and no declarations.
Councillor Heath?
Present and no declarations, thanks.
Councillor Howe?
Present and declaration on item 9, which is obviously my ward.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes is here, but he's not logged in. Do you have any declarations? No declaration. Thank you. Councillor Levine?
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. And Councillor Smith?
Present and no declarations.
Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. So we move on to agenda item 2. Oh, agenda item 1 is registered speakers, and you can find that list on page 4 for today's planning applications. Agenda item 2, minutes of the previous meeting. Is it members' wish that as chair I sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th February? Yes, Kim.
Sorry, Chair, just to say that I'm not noted as sending in my apologies last time, and I did actually email my apologies in.
Right. That's the kind of thing that we want to make sure we've recorded. Can we add that in, Wendy? Any other amendments to that? No? So is everybody happy that I sign that as a true and accurate record then? Yep. Good. I shall do that now. I need to take a vote on that actually. So all in favour? And any against? And any abstentions? Because you weren't here, Mike, I'm guessing. Yep. Okay, that's fine. On to this week's apologies.
So I've only got 2 apologies from Councillor Steve Gazzard and Councillor Brian Bailey.
Oh, that's right. I saw Brian last night and he said he wouldn't be here today. Okay, agenda item 4, declarations of interest we've done. Matters of urgency, there are none. Any items to be dealt with after the public have been excluded, there are none of those. So we move on to agenda item 7, planning appeal statistics, and we have an update from Mrs. Ormsby.
Good morning. So there's not too much to specifically draw to your attention this morning regarding the appeals report. In terms of appeals received, I would just note that we have an appeal, so the last one on that list, 232627M Full, Goosemore Limited, so that was the proposed educatoring facility. We've now had an appeal lodged against that refusal of planning permission. And then in terms of appeals decided, again, I think they're all relatively self-explanatory. I think the only thing I would, I think is I would, I suppose, draw to your attention, because it's pleased to see that we have had 3 decisions regarding appeals against enforcement notices, all of which were dismissed and the enforcement notices upheld, which is positive outcomes there. So nothing else specifically to draw to your attention unless anybody has got any questions. Thank you.
No. Okay. In that case, we can move on to agenda item 8, planning application.
Just before you do that, do you want to see if Peter's got any declarations?
Oh, yeah, Councillor Faithful, thank you for joining us. And do you have any declarations of interest?
Yeah, no, I was going to say also the other...
Yes, I just realised, yeah.
Nothing to declare.
Thank you, Peter. And Councillor Collins, Councillor Roy Collins, do you have any interests?
Nothing to declare.
Okay, and I think I've forgotten your name, Councillor Bailey. I've got to remember Jess, yeah.
Nothing to declare,
Okay,
councillor Davey.
that's fine.
Who's that?
Non-committee member at the back.
Right. What, you have an interest?
There's nothing to
Oh, right.
declare.
Okay. Oh, it's Duncan. Fair. I couldn't see you back there in
No,
the
I
gloom,
couldn't see
Duncan.
it,
I'm also a bit below it.
Yeah. That's
Between us, there's
that's
not a
why
big
I've
vision,
got
is
my
there?
glasses on, so I can see to the back of the room. Okay. So now we get to agenda item 8, planning application 232077 MOUT, land south of Hansford Way, Ottery St Mary, and that's pages 24 to 56 in your agenda pack. So I will hand over to Nigel Barrett, Senior Planning Officer, to present the report, which, oh, is good, is up there already.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. This is, first off, an application for outline planning permission for a mixed employment development on towards the western periphery of Ottery St Mary. The site, which is shown arrowed in the middle of the image in front of you, is around 3/4 of an acre, hectare in area. It is located north of Barrack Road, to the west of the town centre and the River Otter, and the adjacent Finnemore Industrial Estate, which is also shown annotated. You have Barrack Road, the main road out of Ottery, to the west, running alongside the southern boundary. To the west is Thorn Farm Way, and next to that, on the opposite side of the road from the site, is the main hospital for the town. Residential development in Elliot Close to the north, shown highlighted. And off of Thorn Park Way is a secondary road that takes you through to the northern part of the Finnemore Industrial Estate. There is a public footpath that extends from north to south, which I'm highlighting here, which connects Barrack Road with the service road through to the Finnemore Industrial Estate. Most of the site is within flood zone 2, with around between a third and a half of the site within flood zone 3, and I will show a drawing with those flood zones annotated in a second. The site at this stage, as you can see, is undeveloped. It's been variously left essentially fairly wild. And in the adopted local plan, it forms part of a wider employment land allocation, having done so in predecessor local plans, both district-wide and town level. So it is a long-held use designation. The application we have before us, as I've said, is an outline application with all details reserved for later consideration for mixed employment development comprising Class B8 uses, which is storage and distribution, Class EC, which incorporates financial, professional, and other services that are deemed appropriate for provision within a commercial business or service locality, and Class EG uses, which is office, research and light industrial. It is equivalent to the former B1 office stroke light industrial use class. So we've got class B8, class EC and class EG. The original submission did also incorporate an element of class B2 use, general industrial use, but that has been removed from the proposal and no longer forms part of the proposed development. So the red edge defines the application site, as I've said, around 3/4 of a hectare in area. Although the application has been made in outline, we do have a fairly detailed illustrative layout, which is now being shown on the screen. And just to elaborate a little, the broken blue dotted line here broadly delineates the line between flood zone 3 land to the east, annotated here FZ3, and flood zone 2 land to the west. There is a small portion of land adjacent to the boundary of Thorn Farm Way with Barrack Road here, which is flood zone 1 and is of low flood risk vulnerability. Although this is an illustrative plan, it does show the development, the built development, wholly within the lower risk flood zones 1 and 2. This has resulted from negotiation with the Environment Agency and meets with the Environment Agency's requirements to keep built development out of the higher risk flood zone 3, which would be set aside potentially for access, albeit, I emphasize again, access is one of the matters that is reserved for later consideration. But it does also illustrate parking courtyard, part of the parking layout, and also landscaped areas, which are, again, illustratively shown here and up here. The flood risk stems from a fluvial flood risk owing to the presence of a stream that runs from north to south, pretty much along the eastern site boundary, and pretty much parallel with the public footpath that I mentioned earlier, public footpath number 25, which is shown highlighted here. To give you a flavour of the site, this is a view looking to the southwest from the service road through to the northern portion of the Finnemore Industrial Estate. So the site is in the foreground here, with the Bovis Home residential development on the opposite side of Barrack Road in the background. This is a view of public footpath number 25, looking northwards from the Barrack Road end, with the development site to the left in this image. That's a view from the junction with Thorn Farm Way with Barrack Road, looking east to northeast, with the application site in the middle foreground here. And a similar view, but looking rather more east rather than east-northeast, with Barrack Road extending here to the right, and the town in the background. And that's a broader view taken from slightly further up Barrack Road with the site in the middle foreground here. A view looking north towards existing residential development in Elliot Close with the site in the foreground. A view along Thorn Farm Way. The Elliot Close housing is here. The application site is here to the right. So, given the long-standing allocation of the site for employment purposes, in the first instance, it's felt that the broad principle of employment development of the site is in line with that policy, and also with regards to the relevant policy in the Maid Ottery neighbourhood plan. As I say, it forms part of the larger Finnemore Industrial Estate area, adjacent to which there are other employment land allocations as yet to come forward. The range and mix of uses within the use classes I've mentioned are considered to be acceptable and essentially policy compliant. They do not include retail use, and one of the conditions that is set out in the recommendation does seek to prevent change of use, future change of use to alternative Class E uses, which does encompass a very wide range of commercial business and service uses, including retail. So it is conditioned that the uses that have been applied for be the uses that come forward, and any subsequent application for a different use outside of those use classes would require a further separate planning permission. The description of the development has been explicitly incorporates reference to single-storey development. There is a commitment on the part of the development to provide single-storey development throughout. The description does also build in some flexibility. It does refer to a maximum floor space figure, but that is flexible. It would be, the final detail would be reserved for the detailed approval stage. And it is at that point that clearly this illustrative layout would likely be revised. I don't think there's any doubt in the minds of officers that as a layout, this itself is not necessarily acceptable. But it's not a layout that is fixed. It is there to illustrate how a development could be achieved that is within the lower risk flood zone and would incorporate design flood floor levels that are compliant with the Environment Agency's requirements. In terms of the various other contextual issues, the hours of operation for the Class B8 uses and the associated delivery hours, which are restricted to what might be regarded as normal business hours, Monday to Friday and Saturday mornings. They have been agreed with the Council's environmental health team, as indeed have the hours of deliveries permitted for the Class EC and EG uses, which are considered to be more benign in terms of the nature and the level of vehicular activity that they would generate. There are no objections from the County Highway Authority at this stage to the proposals. As I've explained, the parking, the quantity of which would be a matter for us as the district council to consider, is predominantly shown within the higher risk flood zone 3 area. A range of flood risk mitigation measures, which are summarised in the report, have been set out in a detailed flood risk assessment and which has been agreed again with the Environment Agency. A surface water drainage strategy which involves attenuated discharge to the brook to reflect greenfield runoff rates has been agreed with the lead local flood authority. Tests were initially undertaken to establish whether infiltration techniques could be achieved, and they have proven to the lead local flood authority's satisfaction to be not feasible, hence the proposed the strategy involving the attenuated discharge, which has been agreed with the lead local flood authority. The application has provided both preliminary and subsequently protected species survey reports, and they recommend various ecological mitigation and biodiversity enhancement measures, again, which are summarised in point form within the report. They have been reviewed and scrutinised by the council's ecologists, who raised no objections subject to the provision of construction environment management plan and landscaping environment management plan, which are reflected among the recommended conditions set out at the end of the report, and which I'm happy to, there's quite a list of them, but I'm happy to go through them should the need arise. So on that basis, given the in principle support provided by our policies, the absence of any technical objection to the proposal in principle, which I should add does also have the support of the council's own in-house economic development team. Subject to the various conditions set out in the report, the officer position is that the proposal would be acceptable and that outline planning permission should be granted, and therefore the application is recommended before members for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very full report there. So we'll move on to the objectors. First, I've got Roger Vaughan on my list. So if you'd like to come up, and you just press the right-hand button when you're ready to go. That will start the timer, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sure that as members of the committee, you will have, on visiting this major application site, appreciated its size, which is approximately 3/4 of an acre, or nearly a hectare rather, or 2 acres, and its location at the gateway to the town of Ottery St Mary. It is important to note the impact that it has and will continue to have on the adjoining land uses. When the application site was allocated for employment purposes in early editions of local plans, the land use directly adjoining the site on 3 sides was agricultural, vastly different to what it is now. We have Thorn Farm Housing Estate to the north, as mentioned, Kings Reach Housing Estate and Retirement Home to the south, plus the town's hospital to the west, and not forgetting the King's School, which directly adjoins the hospital. The Fenimore Industrial Estate lies to the east and is divided from the application site by a natural barrier consisting of the tributary of the River Otter with its natural banks and trees. A designated public footpath, number 25, as mentioned by the officer, also runs the full length of this boundary. To breach this barrier and allow a continuation of industrial sprawl onto this major site would be an act of bad planning practice, and in so doing takes no account of the vast changes that have been made to the immediate environment previously mentioned. Fenimore Industrial Estate is a large and already provides more lettable space than is needed in the town. There are 2 parcels of land allocated for employment purposes on this estate that have never been developed and should have been if there was the need. Furthermore, there are extensive abandoned buildings on this site and vacant premises of 690 square metres of foot space, and that have remained unlet for years. Therefore, I am suggesting that there is no need for additional industrial units. Flooding is an extremely important issue on the application site and its environs. Because the site is underdeveloped, it acts as a safety valve for the immediate areas of absorbing stormwater in times of heavy downfall. Very recently, following the major storms, e.g. Chandra, that devastated many local areas, including flooding in Ottery, the occupants
I
of
need to
houses
ask you
adjoining
to
this
start
site
winding
received...
up now.
Sorry.
That's your 3 minutes. You need to start winding up now.
Right. The adjoining owners of houses received red alert messages urging them to prepare to evacuate. I find this is a very limited time in which to express an awful lot of detail which needs to be spoken about. But in concluding, the impact of this proposal will be felt by many who live in the immediate areas. In particular, those living in Elliot Close, which is extremely adjacent to this site. Industrial means the introduction of noise, air pollution, and extra danger on the roads, which, with operating times which weren't mentioned, 7 or 8 in the morning until 6 and 11 p.m.
We're
is
aware of
unacceptable.
the time restrictions.
Employment purposes
there.
should not mean industrial.
No.
As a committee, I urge you to refuse this application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you've got a very long submission, you know, you can always send it to Wendy for distribution to the committee so they can read it.
Well, that wasn't made clear.
No. Okay.
I mean, to be honest, this is a major development and it should be debated properly.
Okay. Thank you. If you could just press the button again, so, or the next speaker could, it doesn't matter. Yep. Okay, next I've got Councillor Richard Granger from Ottery St Mary Town Council.
Good morning, everyone. In the absence of our mayor, Vicky Jones, who was, I think, the instigator of this meeting, the cause of her objection in particular, I'm here really to represent the views of the Planning Committee, which had a split decision on the approval of this project. And I do take into account what Roger has just said, which has not really been addressed by the planning process yet. But I am aware, of course, that it's an outline, you know, and we can't argue about the detail until the detail emerges. I accept that, but I am heartened by the response of the applicant to the initial reaction, which is, in particular, the removal of the B2 category, which I regard as a positive attitude from the developer. And I do recognise the need for employment opportunity in the town, which I know Councillor Collins was very keen to support, and I share that view. So I would like to say that the main problem that remains is congestion. It's the traffic at that junction every school day, which can be a nightmare for those trying to get to work and finding that they're stuck in a queue for 20, 30 minutes. And the solution to that would be to include a mini roundabout at the junction. That would certainly improve the traffic flow. And I think, looking at the plans that we've seen, there's plenty of room for that at that junction to put in a flush mini roundabout to control traffic flow. And if that had been included, I would certainly have no objection to the process, because I do look forward to the provision of up to 70 job opportunities in the town, which I think is a very positive move, given that this land has admittedly been designated for industrial use for so many years. So, yeah, I did feel rather misrepresented as being an objector, because in fact I'm more of an observer and an amender than an objector. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Ward Member Councillor Peter Faithful.
Thank you, Chair. First, acknowledging that this is outline and not reserved matters. There are issues that I am concerned about, which I want to highlight at this meeting so that maybe the applicants can come back with something better. As is pointed out, this is the entrance to the town, and it's really important how it appears to the public. So to me, landscaping is important, and particularly around the backs of the buildings, which, you know, you've got Sainsbury's, which gives a good example of a warehouse hidden by a screen of trees, where this isn't going to offer that. Noise level, I did walk around the industrial estate to see what sort of noises there are, and there's a refrigeration unit which is giving out quite a lot of noise, and the other sound was from the car body repair workshop. So I think we need to keep control over what goes on in there. Light industrial is a very open subject. It just means small, there's very little restriction on what is light industrial. So types of use, I think it would really be important to, particularly the residents in that area, what type of employment is going on there. It will have an impact around them. So, and height of buildings, single story does not define how high a building should be. You can have an aircraft hangar as a single story building. So I would really want to see some measure of identifying the maximum height of buildings there. But I would particularly want to see, I do welcome employment in the town, but I would want to see more smaller units, as that is what is really wanted right across the district. Am I doing? And yeah, I would prefer to see, looking at how much space the footprint is taking up, if there's a way of reducing, I know this is just an up to footprint, but if there's a way of reducing the footprint to leave more room for landscaping, because I think landscaping that particular site is really important because of its location, its position opposite the hospital on the main road into town, and so visual impact when you're coming into town is really, really important. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Peter. And I'll just say the application states a maximum amount. It could be reduced, particularly when we come to the reserved matters and officers start looking at it. And I take your point, I'll take everybody's points about this being the gateway to the town. I've often used it myself, and I can see how important it is going to be to have appropriate heights of buildings and appropriate screening. Okay.
Chair, would it be possible for me to just make a very quick comment as a Devon County Councillor for Ottery?
You're not actually on the list. I'm looking to my...
I didn't receive an email.
Okay. I think it's my discretion. That's just what I'm checking. Yes, in that case, I think as you're here, it would be good to hear from the county councillor as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm really concerned about the flood risk from this site and whether the sequential test has been applied correctly in the analysis. It requires that the council is reasonably satisfied there are no alternative, no reasonably available sites of lower flood risk, and allocation alone does not disapply the sequential test. And I want to pick up on what one of our speakers said today around the impact on this area of flooding. We had a red alert from the River Otter only in January this year, and I'm really concerned about further development here, the impact it will have on adjoining properties, and the role that it plays, as we've heard, in terms of providing a kind of a basin for absorbing water, flood water. So I just question whether the sequential test has been correctly applied and whether this is indeed an appropriate place for allocation. And this would have been allocated, as I understand it, a very long time ago. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's all the speakers, so we can move on to questions committee. And just a reminder that Tom Winter, Economic Development Officer, is here also to answer any questions. And straight out of the traps, I see Councillor Barlow's got his hand up. Go for it, Hugh.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to check with the officers. I just wanted to check. It was in the previous plan as an industrial area. It's in the new plan, the one that we're putting through at the present time as industrial area. Do you know when the houses in the estate next door were built? Were they passed after 2003, 13? And can you just confirm that all the screening of the site and will be done at reserve matters? Thank you.
Do you want to take those as they come?
Yeah, sorry, Councillor.
No, that's
Just
fine.
remind me of the first question.
Several questions there, yeah. I think there was something about when the development.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
no,
Sorry, I'm probably because I'm.
Okay.
Certainly, the allocation is in the adopted plan. I mean, I've worked a long time, my career here, and as far as I can remember back, it's been an employment allocation in both previous versions of the district-wide plan and when Ottery St Mary had its own separate local plan. I think the maps with the emerging local plan, I'm not sure what level of detail they contain by way of land allocations within the current built-up area boundary. I think they're very much rather more focused on allocations outside. But certainly, as far as I'm aware, the policy context hasn't changed. It's still a site that's earmarked for employment development. In terms of the age of the housing developments to the north, I'll be honest, I'm not sure. I'd say anecdotally, best part of 20 years. And yes, since the allocation was originally incorporated into planning policy, yes, the surrounding area has been developed with the hospital, housing to the north, the Bovis housing on the other side of Barrack Road. I mean, the environment has changed significantly in that time. There's no doubting. But equally, again, it's a long-held allocation in both past and current local plans.
Okay.
Is there another question?
Thank you. Irene, Councillor Wragg.
Thank you. It's probably one for Tom. With the withdrawal of Class B2, what impact would that have on the employment numbers, which are potentially 70 full-time equivalent, please?
Thank you. So I wouldn't expect to see a significant variation in terms of employment numbers there. To be honest with you, I wasn't particularly expecting to see B2 come on here anyway, really, given it's surrounded, as we've been talking, by residential. So I don't have any particular issues from an employment numbers perspective, if that's helpful.
Okay. Councillor Levine.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask Mr. Winter, because some of the objectors have raised the question, do we really need the employment land here? Would you be able to help me out?
Yes, certainly. So, obviously I'm mindful as well that our comment is about 2.5 years old now. So not much has really changed since that rather gloomy assessment. What I would say, obviously, since then we have seen development in the West End, for example, the Sky Park. We've seen the Onyx units come forward there. They are at a sort of higher rental value, also not particularly close to Ottery. And we have seen, as we've been discussing, a lot of housing development in the town in the current local plan period and before. Not really seen anything meaningful by way of employment development. I know we've talked about, obviously, a lot of people having to leave the town in the mornings to drive to Exeter and elsewhere. That also comes through in the data as well. If you look at job density, for example, for every 100 people in East Devon, there's only 74 jobs. If you look back to 2015, that was about, I think, 88 for every 100. So it's going down. So that is an issue. In terms of current availability in the town, there's only one unit, I think it was mentioned earlier. It was just on Allens Way when you come into the right there, but that is primarily sort of showroom, trade counter office accommodation. I think what we'd see here, I hope, obviously the reserve matters, would be more flexible employment space. And things like B2, as we'd mentioned, I'd expect that to come forward on estates like this, where there isn't necessarily housing adjoining. So, I'm very delighted to see this come forward. We've got a lot of stalled employment sites in the district. To see this one finally come forward is very encouraging from my perspective. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bloxham, Kim.
Thank you. I wonder if somebody could answer Councillor Bailey's question about the sequential test.
I was just going to ask Mrs. Ormsby actually to comment on the sequential test and whether it had been carried out correctly. Yeah.
So the all site allocations in the current adopted local plan would have been subject to the sequential test at the time that the plan was put together. And paragraph 180 of the MPPF says that where planning applications come forward on sites allocated in the development plan through the sequential test, applicants need not apply the sequential test again.
Okay. Any more questions?
Just to confirm, please, that any screening or anything like that would be done at reserve matters stage and not at this stage.
That was a question, Ian, that's right. Thank you for
Yes,
reminding us.
all detailed matters, including the landscaping, are reserved for later approval. Yes.
Councillor Howe, Mike.
Thank you, and I'm going to apologise to Councillor Bailey straight away, but being she's the Devon County representative and Devon County are the lead flood authority, has she spoken to her officers regarding her concerns on flooding?
I would say there's an issue around planning, so I don't get formally consulted. So I often don't even know when something's, coming to committee. I'm not the district council ward member. So a bit like highways, I often find out about things quite last minute. So no, I haven't. But I think that I don't necessarily always agree with the officers in the different departments anyway. And I think I have a really good first-hand insight into the impact of flooding. I saw on the 29th of January, I was down near the River Otter and I saw the terrifying spectacle of the River Otter in full flood. And I think that developing an industrial estate so close to the River Otter with a stream, with the residents nearby, is something that we need to be really concerned about. And any sequential test would have been applied a long time ago, and we don't even know whether it was applied. Was it applied in the last local plan? Was it the plan before? And I think that our approach to climate change and flood risk needs to be bang up to date, and I'm really concerned about the flood risk from here, the impact on residents, and the lead local flood authority may not agree with me. Officers often don't, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm incorrect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think it's stated in the application that the amount of runoff from the site will not exceed what it currently is the runoff as Greenfield. I think that's correct.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons you'll note this application has been with us for some time, and one of the reasons is that the lead local flood authority were looking at it very carefully in terms of how surface water could be managed. In addition, there's been quite a lot of toing and froing with the Environment Agency to ensure, because obviously whilst it may pass a sequential test, it nevertheless is in predominantly flood zones 2 and 3, so land at risk. So Environment Agency have been looking at it very carefully, and there's a series of mitigation measures that they have that they're requiring, which will be carried forward into any reserve matters. For example, minimum finished floor levels inside buildings to make sure that they are above the flood levels, and a series of other mitigation measures that are summarised in the officer report. But it has been looked at very carefully by the Environment Agency to make sure that the site itself can be safe during flood, but also to make sure that the development isn't going to increase flood risk elsewhere.
Okay, thank you on that one. Okay, if there's no more questions, committee, we can go into debate. Who would like to? I see Councillor Barlow is handing over the baton. Councillor Howe.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this is one of those, isn't it, where you really don't want to do it, but nevertheless, it is what it is. It's been an allocation for a long time. The houses were built afterwards, so they were built knowing there was industrial beside them, going to be employment land beside them. The flood mitigation's been addressed. Highways aren't worried. Unfortunately, I've got to go with officers, so I recommend approval as per officers' recommendation.
Okay, I'll take that as a recommendation
Yeah,
or a
okay.
proposal. And was that a seconder? Ian, do you want to?
Yes, happy
on
to
that?
second on the same grounds. At the end of the day, this has been down there. It is industrial land. If you build houses, if you build anything next to land that is already designated, otherwise, what's the point of us making a local plan? The whole point of it, surely, is to let people know what is coming, what is in the future, and you make your own decisions then based on that. We've built another Bovis home site, the other side of the road, right opposite as well. So again, I'm sorry that. How would you turn it down?
Okay, Councillor Levine. Oh, you were going to second. Okay. Does anybody else wish to speak on this one? Councillor Collins.
Thank you. Having lived in Ottery my entire life, I don't work in Ottery because there wasn't employment for me. And I appreciate that there are concerns that people have raised, but ultimately I think I echo Councillor Granger and Councillor Faithfull's points that, it could be good for the town, really, really good for the town, and we can hopefully mitigate, some of the issues around screening and stuff when we get to the reserve matters stage, to make it an attractive sort of opening statement to the town. And I would welcome it and support the officer's recommendation in this.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Well, you're very quiet this morning. Okay, in that case, I think we can go to a vote. So we have a proposal to approve, seconded by Councillor Barlow. Yep. So, all those in favour? And against? Pretty much unanimous. I'll abstain just in case, but just in case it was a split decision. I know, but I'm getting canny about it now, Mike. Okay, so that's carried. Would you like a break now, committee? What time is it? Oh, it's nearly 11. We've been going for an hour. Shall we have, 10 minutes? Yeah. Okay, and then we'll come back and look at the next one. There's no lunch today, so we'll keep it all brief. Okay, members, we're ready to start again. Everybody's back, aren't they? There wasn't anybody sitting next to you, John, was there? No, don't think so. Okay. In that case, we move on to agenda item 9. This is application 252593, permission in principle, PIP. Oh, sorry, I've jumped. Of course. So it's always my fault, Ian, as you never fail to point out. Okay, so it's right. In that case, I'm just trying to find out what page I'm on. So it's 74 to 98, right. Okay. Right. So it's agenda item 10 on my list. And this is application 232663, and it's a full application. So over to Andrew Digby, who's going to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry for the delay. This is an application for a new build dwelling on the site of a ruined dwelling. The site is in All Saints, just to the north of Axminster, and there you see on the aerial photo the site outlined in red and the ruins of the dwelling there. There's no debate amongst anyone about the status of that building. It has been a ruin for a long time and doesn't have a lawful status as a dwelling, so this isn't before us as a replacement dwelling under the replacement dwellings policy. This is effectively a greenfield site and a new build dwelling. Land to the west is in the Blackdown Hills National Landscape, but the site is outside. There is a public footpath, which you can just see in pink, running adjacent to the site, up the driveway and adjacent to the site into the field behind. When we get to the photos, we'll see some views from Goldsmiths Lane here, going up the driveway and past the site and then looking back from the field. The site is in All Saints, a small settlement. It doesn't have a Bilsbury boundary, so this is a departure from the local plan. Although it's not far from Smallridge, where there's a school and a church and a village hall, the walking, cycling, public transport options are very limited, so this doesn't satisfy policy TC2 and strategy 5B. And so there is a presumption against development here. And some of you may recall permission being refused in 2022 at appeal for this 2019 scheme, which was refused for two main reasons. One was to do with the scale of the dwelling, and the other was lack of a nutrient neutrality solution, because this is within the catchment of the River Axe. Something that Inspector singled out in the decision was this big bank of solar panels, and we'll see in a minute that's been removed from the proposed scheme. So this is the revised site layout. You can just make out the outline of the refused dwelling and then the footprint of the proposed dwelling. In front, you've got a drainage mound and landscaping, and then access coming up the existing access here, and then along a new driveway. As you can see, it's got a sinuous form, pretty similar to the previous application, the refuse scheme, but on a smaller scale. And that is also expressed in the elevations, which you'll see next. So one of the revisions they've made in this scheme is to put solar panels on the eaves line here. And this is a bespoke scheme, which requires individually shaped panels fitting on a copper backing at the eaves of the building. And this is considered to be one of the innovative parts of the design. So this is a 3D image. You can see those solar panels a bit more clearly. The walls are constructed in cob. We've obviously got a thatched roof. There's a copper ridge, which is not a typical feature of thatched buildings in the local area, but it is something that is used in other parts of the world. So taking you through the photos, we start on Goldsmiths Lane, looking towards the site with a driveway just on the left coming in here. You've got Chestnut Cottage towards the front of the site, and the dwelling would be in here. And then we approach along the driveway with Chestnut Cottage on the right and the dwelling in here. And the public footpath follows straight ahead. You can't quite see the gap, but follows the line of the driveway straight past the site. Here we have the turning circle and Chestnut Cottage again, and a view into the site. So the remains of Lily Cottage, the former dwelling, are in there somewhere, and the new dwelling would fill most of that. This is a view looking from the public footpath over the hedge, holding the camera up so that you can see over the top, looking back to Chestnut Cottage, and another view towards the ruins of Lily Cottage, the dwelling that was abandoned long ago. Now, in this view, we're looking back from the field towards the site, so this tree is on the back of the site and the dwelling would sit in there. You can't quite make out Chestnut Cottage, but it's there in the background. And then this is a wider view, so it puts it in context. The site is here, and you can see that it would be seen alongside other dwellings in Goldsmiths Lane. So the site is outside a built-up area boundary, and it's contrary to Strategy 7. The occupants would be car dependent. There are few amenities nearby and poor access to public transport. However, the design is considered to be innovative and high quality, using natural materials and a bespoke renewable energy system and a well-considered form. It's context sensitive, and this responds to the inspector's previous concerns regarding dominance, and that's been resolved by reducing the scale of the dwelling compared to the refuse scheme. The dwelling achieves a very high sustainability performance in addition to housing supply. The previous concern about impact on the river access they see has been addressed by proposing to upgrade a septic tank on another property elsewhere in the catchment. The reason that this application has taken so long to reach this stage is because of all the effort that's gone into finding a nutrient neutrality solution. They have now done that, and Natural England have confirmed that the solution is acceptable. So that would be secured by way of a Section 106 agreement. The council cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, so the most important policies for determining the application are considered to be out of date and the tilted balance applies. This means that planning permission should be granted unless adverse impacts of doing so would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits when assessed against the NPPF taken as a whole. This does not mean that the conflict with the development plan ceases to be relevant, but it does mean that we must apply a presumption in favour of sustainable development, with harms weighed carefully against benefits. While there are policy conflicts, these must be weighed against the benefits, and significant weight is afforded to paragraph 139B of the NPPF, which states that outstanding or innovative designs that promote high levels of sustainability and fit well with their surroundings should attract significant positive weight. When these matters are weighed together, officers consider that the limited harm arising from the site's countryside location and reliance on the private car does not significantly and demonstrably outweigh the substantial benefits, especially the high quality design, exemplary sustainability credentials, and the contribution to housing supply. Therefore, applying the tilted balance, the proposal is considered to amount to sustainable development, and as such, the recommendation is to approve. The approval is subject to a number of conditions, lots of standard conditions there, and I just want to draw your attention to condition 10, which is a slight variation on the version in the committee report. This is designed to allow for improvements in technology, so it doesn't bind the developer to the precise sustainability measures that were proposed in the application. It allows for enhancements to be provided should they become available, and that would be demonstrated as part of the application, as part of the discharge of conditions. So the recommendation is to approve subject to that variation to condition 10. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. We first hear from the agent, Rob Hughes. Just press the right-hand button when you're ready, and that will start the 3-minute timer, by which time your eggs should be perfectly boiled.
Good morning, Chair, ladies and gentlemen. Members will be aware that this application is made in light of an appeal decision for a larger dwelling on the site, but crucially, of similar architectural design and method of construction. Whilst the inspector judged the proposal to be an eye-catching and innovative piece of architecture, it was felt that the house was too big for the plot. In response, the scale and height of the house have been substantially reduced by 37.5%, whilst ensuring no loss in the design integrity. The design continues to employ cob and thatch, the pliable nature of which allows the building to take a sinuous form. The resulting S-shape of the building effectively showcases the potential for the use of these materials in a contemporary way. The building will be constructed with the aim of achieving zero carbon status. In the inspector's words, the proposal comprises an innovative design which promotes high levels of sustainability. In this particular case, the inspector's findings in relation to the previous larger proposal is highly material. Local planning authorities are required by law to have regard to the findings of inspectors in relation to previous proposals. The proposal has addressed the issue of scale, and it has been designed in consultation with your planning officers and urban design officer. The scheme has therefore been subject to professional scrutiny on its journey to determination. The urban design officer concluding that, in design terms, this proposal would be a positive addition to the local area, with nothing about the current revised design that raises any reason to have concern in regard to a planning application. From this design point of view, this is therefore recommended for approval. The committee report sets out in much greater detail the planning policy framework which provides the support and justification for the development. Members will be mindful of the list of conditions which will ensure that the detailed aspects of the scheme are subject to scrutiny and approval. and that considerations such as materials, landscaping, trees, energy technologies, and external lighting are controlled. The applicant has also submitted a draft unilateral undertaking to secure a foul drainage upgrade, which has been accepted by Natural England. We have worked closely with officers over the past few years as the scheme has evolved, and we would like to thank all of those officers who have guided and influenced the evolution of the proposals during this time. We endorse your officer's recommendation for approval and respectfully ask members to be equally supportive of what is an outstanding and in many ways unique development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Okay, and the ward member, Councillor McKinder.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Duncan McKinder, the District Councillor for the Yardley Ward, which includes the parish of All Saints, where this application site is located. As you will see from the report, there have been many applications related to this site since 1991, all of which have been refused. The most recent refusal was appealed, and the appeal was dismissed, as we've heard in the officer's report. Though the application describes the proposed property as replacing the now ruined Lily Cottage, both the applicant and EDDC agree this is in fact a new build, as permission to build Poppins to replace Lily Cottage was granted many years ago. As a new build, and with the location being outside built-up area boundary, this application conflicts with Strategy 7, as we've heard in the report, and also conflicts with Strategy 5B and Policy TC2, which relate to sustainable transport. Consulting the location plan, you will note that properties in the locality are sited adjacent to lanes. Lily Cottage, however, was set further back into the surrounding fields. However, when Poppins was built to replace Lily Cottage, it restored the common pattern of properties adjacent to local lanes. The proposed property here is not only significantly larger than Lily Cottage, though smaller than the previous application, it extends further from Goldsmiths Lane, which will set a bad precedent and encourage subsequent applications to build further into surrounding fields. Indeed, there have already been other applications for developments on land adjacent to Poppins that have been refused. If this application is permitted, I suspect there will be renewed applications to develop adjacent sites and push developments further into surrounding farmland. Establishing this precedent to allow developments to spread into surrounding agricultural land, I regard this as a major adverse impact for consideration in the planning balance. Such a precedent could also provide justification for applications to spread developments further into unspoilt countryside elsewhere within the district, and its unspoilt countryside, which is one of the attractive and valued features of East Devon. Though smaller than the prior application that was dismissed on appeal, the proposal would still result in a building larger than neighbouring properties. In this regard, I would query the description in the executive summary of the report that this application is contextually sensitive, both in its scale and the combination of materials used. You will notice from the report that there have been a fair number of objections, some with detailed reasoning from local residents and the parish council. Due to time constraints, I will not repeat those here, though I find many of the specific points made to be persuasive, and I urge the committee to consider these when reaching your decision. Planning should be focused on ensuring the right properties are built in the right locations. In this case, I believe this is not the right location, and I urge the committee to reject this application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Well, actually, you do get 5 minutes, I think, as a ward member, don't you? Yeah. So you could have had another couple of minutes, Duncan. You didn't have to keep to the public speaker's timing. But yeah, thank you very much for that. Okay, I think that's all the speakers, so we can move on to questions. Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just a little bit confused about what sustainable means nowadays, because it seems to keep changing. So does this mean that if you put up a nice looking building, and it's a very nice looking building, well designed, etc., even though you've got to have a car, which again, previous level, we said if you've got to have a car, it's not sustainable. Does this mean now that that's sustainable? And is this a change of policy?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. But yeah, I'm going to anticipate what the officers might say, but you could say that the sustainability credentials of the building outweigh the lack of sustainability in having to travel by car.
So this is what I'm asking.
So,
Does
yeah.
that mean if it's a good quality building, then basically we can put them wherever
I
we
will
want?
ask, I'd like the officers to comment on sustainability and perhaps also mention, because I wondered whether the inspector had commented on the need to travel by car and whether he saw that as being outweighed by the sustainability.
And also, if I
credentials.
can just ask again, we're talking about one house here. So again, when the tilted balance, it was only last time that we were talking because it was only one house, didn't really make a lot of difference. So therefore, the sustainable and the balance shouldn't really come into play at that point.
Yeah, I think it is a question of balance there. If it's only one building, obviously it's not making a massive contribution to the council's housing land supply.
Yeah, what the inspector said about location was quite limited, although she did acknowledge that it's not in a assessment with a built area boundary. In the end, I think the reason she didn't say a lot about it was because the design was considered to be unacceptable and there was no nutrient neutrality solution. So she didn't, in the end, carry out that balancing exercise that we're doing today. In terms of whether this is sustainable, I think in the context of the NPPF, where it says we should give significant weight to high quality design in paragraph 139, that is a component of sustainability. So where there's good quality design, little or no landscape harm, those things have to be weighed against the locational disbenefits. And in this case, this isn't an isolated dwelling. The inspector did conclude that. She noted that Smallridge has a school and church and village hall. Axminster is a couple of miles away. So in the balance, it's officers' view that when you look at the NPPF read as a whole, it can be considered sustainable, but it is a balanced judgment.
Just adding on to that, because there was reference to the tilted balance in terms of housing land supply. So the tilted balance should be applied to all proposals for housing, whether it's 1 or whether it's 80. We still apply the tilted balance, and as would any inspector at an appeal situation. So we can't disregard the tilted balance just because it's providing one dwelling. And I mean, and again, I think it is acknowledged, if you were looking purely at the location, we would say this is not a sustainable location for development. But much as para 180, when we're looking at, I'm looking at Andrew, he's going to know better, when we're looking at isolated dwellings, which paragraph 184 in the NPPF, which considers development in isolated locations, and again, one of the criteria where it is deemed that you could allow new dwellings is where they are introduce outstanding or innovative designs. And that was a situation at a site we dealt with relatively recently, which was refused at committee and allowed on appeal because of, notwithstanding its unsustainable location, it was deemed to be of outstanding and innovative design. And the inspector felt, having regard to paragraph 189, that it met those criteria. In this instance, this is not an isolated site, so we can't apply that paragraph. However, looking at paragraph 139, it does say that significant weight should be given to outstanding or innovative designs which promote high levels of sustainability. And I think in that particular situation, sustainability means obviously, you know, more of a net carbon in terms of means of construction, means of, you know, heating the house, etc. in the future. So I think where we're in a situation where we are applying the tilted balance, the officer view is that the dwelling does demonstrate outstanding and innovative design, and that was that broadly supported in principle by the previous inspector. It was just the scale that led to that being dismissed. I think the officer view is that looking at that planning balance, that this overall would be deemed to be sustainable development in terms of applying the tilted balance, hence the recommendation for this as being for approval.
Okay, thank you for answering that very fully. Okay, any more questions? Oh yes, Councillor Levine, sorry, I did have
Thank you, Chair. If I understood it right, but I may not have done, the proposal is to put an upgraded septic tank on a neighbouring property. But supposing there is a neighbourly dispute, can the property owner of the septic tank, can they stop the neighbours using it? And couldn't we be a bit adventurous? I know that Natural England poo-poos the idea of an orchard, but as we're trying to increase the tree canopy in the district, it seems to me a wonderful way of putting in a test case to see whether the orchard actually works.
I don't think Natural England can take that risk. I mean, there's nothing stopping them putting in an orchard. It's just that it's not considered a suitable way. But it could be if they do. I think there was something about hydrological work required. It could be that they could get further work done on that that might actually enable that to be put forward as a solution. On the question of the septic tank, that would be a civil matter. So long as there's agreement at the moment, I don't know. Mike's shaking his head. If Mike shakes his head, it's not a good sign. Councillor Howe, do you?
Actually, you've got legal beside you, but it won't be a civil matter if it's a unilateral undertaking taken through us as a legal agreement. It is enforceable and would stop, my understanding is, the development of this house if the mitigation wasn't put in.
I think Andrew's got the answer.
So the site where the upgrade is to take place isn't a neighbouring property, it's somewhere else in the catchment. The occupier of that dwelling already has an informal agreement to sign up to this legal agreement. So there would be a formal requirement to deliver the upgrade before the dwelling is occupied, and we've got every reason to think that it will happen. And if it doesn't, then the dwelling can't happen. And just on the subject of the orchard, there were a number of solutions looked at for achieving neutrality, including a drainage field and orchard on the site, but for various technical reasons to do with ground conditions and hydrology, it wasn't feasible, and that's why they've had to look off-site for a solution. But Natural England have confirmed they're satisfied now.
So it's actually a kind of offsetting that they're proposing, yeah. Okay, so it's not actually a shared septic tank, Yehudi, so we can rest easy. Councillor John Heath.
Thank you, Ollie. Just a quick question. Perhaps I've missed it, but how many bedrooms is this property planned to have, or has that not been decided? Thanks.
Just see if we can get the floor plans up, but there are 2 bedrooms in this.
Because
so,
just put the plans up again, we'll have a look. That's the one.
Yeah, so we've got 1 bedroom on the first floor here and then another one on the ground floor.
So it's just the two bedrooms, yeah. But the previous design that was refused, did that have more?
It did. I think it was 3 bedrooms and a much larger building overall, bigger reception rooms, etc.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, in that case, we can go into debate. Anybody wish to comment on this one? Councillor Levine.
I just wanted to say that I like the design. It really is eye-catching.
It's interesting because it's kind of vernacular, but not. Well, I'll just reiterate the danger of getting too tied up in aesthetics, because I think one of the reasons we refused the previous one that was subsequently allowed on appeal was that we didn't like the aesthetics of it. It had sort of wooden uprights, but the sustainability credentials of it were still impeccable. And in fact, arguably, that one was even more innovative in that it had water cascading down through the middle and all sorts of things. Councillor Howe.
Yeah, this is one of those where you don't like it particularly, and even whether you like the design or not, but I'm going to go with officers and recommend approval as per officers' recommendation. We've got to remember we've got an appeal decision that sets the stone we're working with. I don't believe it's a sustainable location in the slightest, but it is a brownfield site. It's a ruin. It might not have been, or was a house originally. Admittedly, they replaced the house, but the structure, most of it is, well, part of it is still there. So as such, I believe, as marking it as a brownfield site as well, this is a nice replacement to go there in all other frames. So, yep, approval.
Got an appropriate assessment as well.
Oh, yeah.
And the appropriate assessment, yeah.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Bethany Collins?
Yeah, I'm happy to second that as per officer recommendation and with the appropriate assessment.
Okay. Councillor Barlow.
Yeah, much as I don't disagree with Councillor Howe, the only issue here is it's not a sustainable location, which is when the tilted balance should come into play. From my understanding, is that's one of the things they say, the tilted balance with lack of housing has to come in as long as it's in a sustainable location. So this isn't. Much as it's a beautiful design, I think, and you say it's a brownfield site, but then you're saying it's not. We've had this before, where you've removed the building, swapped it, and then we've said, well, it's not a brownfield site anymore. It's now gone back to, well, it was at Greendale when they knocked down a building, and there was a building there. They took it down, and as soon as they took it down, it then becomes a greenfield site again. So, well.
Yeah, but it didn't take this one down. It fell down.
Well, okay, so it's still there. But then you put in another place to replace it, so that would have been used then. Look, I don't want to be devil's advocate. I just want to make sure that we are being very careful that just because someone is tenacious and keeps putting in the plans, that we are eventually giving in because it's a nice looking building. But you're basically saying that we can build in the countryside. It doesn't have to really be a sustainable location, as long as there's a bit of some sort of ruin on the site or a bit of a building on the site, and you have made the building so that it's environmentally friendly. I mean, that's what we're trying to say, that this building is sustainable now because it's well designed and carbon neutral-ish. Yeah, well, we usually say if it's not in the neighbourhood plan, there's no reason for it, and all the rest of it goes out. But anyway, I will not.
Yeah, well, there is an exception, which Mrs. Ormsby outlined already. Well, in the NPPF, that if it's outstanding, innovative, sustainable design, then it may be permitted. But irrespective even of whether it is a brownfield site or isn't, I accept that the replacement building has already been provided, but on the other hand, as Mike says, there's still a building on the site, so it's very arguable whether that has reverted to a greenfield site.
Is that because we didn't enforce the planning, but where it was supposed to be
No,
removed?
no,
All right.
no, there was nothing to enforce. Okay, Councillor Ragg.
Thank you. It'd be difficult to turn this one down because sustainable or not, there was previously a building there, so it is a brownfield site. Also, in the light of the inspector's comments about the design, it's been scaled right back, and the design would be acceptable in the eyes of that particular inspector. It might not be in the eyes of another one, but we can't really take that chance, I don't think. So just thought I'd make those 2 points. Difficult to refuse it.
Yep. Okay, any other comments on this one? Okay, in that case, we can go to a vote. It's been proposed by Councillor House, seconded by Councillor Bethany Collins. So all those in favour?
Can we just vote on the appropriate assessment?
Yes, we
first?
have to do the appropriate assessment as well. So yeah, let's take a vote on the appropriate assessment first, which has been carried out. Yeah. And then on the building itself, on the application. Oh, apparently there's, sorry, Damien, there's a revised condition 10 to encompass the S106 agreement. Or no, it's both. There's a revised condition 10. What was condition 10 then?
That was about the sustainability credentials. Just,
Could you put the slide up?
Oh, the sustainable, oh, just ensuring that the sustainability measures are all, are actually implemented. I think that's what it is, isn't it? Because otherwise.
Happy to take that on.
Yeah. So you're happy with that as, yeah, getting nods there, and an S106 agreement, and yeah, the appropriate assessment, which we've done. Okay, so subject to that revised condition and an S106 agreement, all those in favour? Okay.
Is that 9?
Yep, and against? Yep. Any against? Abstentions? Councillor Hughes, you're abstaining, right?
Sorry, Chair, can we
Yeah.
go again? Right,
So-
all those in favour, if you just put your hand up and keep it there for a moment, thank you. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, yeah.
Yep.
All those
Yeah.
against, please.
No against.
No, that's it.
Yeah, and 2 abstentions. Yep.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so that one is carried, and so we go on to agenda item 9, planning. Is everybody happy to carry on, by the way? Yeah. Planning application 252593, permission in principle, land adjacent to the A376, Exmouth Road, Ebford Lane, Ebford. And that's pages 57 to 73 in your agenda pack. And just waiting for Jill Himsworth to come and present the report. So you can talk among yourselves for a minute while we wait for Jill. She wasn't expecting us to get through it this quickly, obviously.
Thank you very much. So this application is a permission in principle for the development of up to 5 detached dwellings in the settlement of Ebford. So the application is before the planning committee, as the application represents a departure from the local plan. So the site is just to the north of Ebford, in the area enclosed by the red rectangle.
Sorry.
Okay. So like I was saying, the site, it lies to the north of Ebford in the area enclosed by the red rectangle here. This plantation of trees, which lies to the west of the A376 running through the village, is within the coastal preservation area and within a green wedge as defined by the local plan, but no landscape designations apply to the site itself. So the permission in principle is a two-stage process. So the permission in principle and then is considered in the first instance, and then the technical details consent application is made subsequently. So at this stage of the application, the considerations are limited to land use, location, and the amount of development proposed. So in terms of the land use, Ebford does not have a built-up area boundary, therefore strategy 7 applies for development in the countryside. Ebford is not a village under local plan.
Oh, right. I know, it's always difficult to hear under there. If you move a bit further forward, sometimes it's a bit better. Okay.
Is that better? Okay. So Ebford is not a village as defined under local plan strategy 7, as it doesn't have the day-to-day services or facilities to meet the needs of residents. There's no provision for development in Ebford under the emerging local plan either. The neighbourhood plan also does not contain policies that would permit new dwellings. However, in respect of the 5-year housing land supply, the presumption in favour of sustainable development applies. So in terms of accessibility, both the local plan and the national planning policy framework seek development to be accessible by pedestrians, cyclists and public transport to minimise car use and to give residents a genuine choice of transport modes. And in that respect, a further material consideration is a recent appeal decision for land at Branscombe Farm. That's the site highlighted in the blue rectangle, and the application under consideration at the moment is the red rectangle. So while that appeal was dismissed, the inspector stated that there were a number of local facilities, including shops at Darts Farm, a number of employment uses close to Darts Farm, a primary school, and also a pub. This site also has footpaths connecting it along the A376 and street lighting, which the Branscombe Farm site did not. There are also bus stops within close proximity of the site, and it's also relatively close to the Exeter cycle path connecting Exeter and Exmouth along the estuary. So in terms of the connections, this site is actually probably better connected than that site in that it lies on the footpath and has street lights. And as such, it's not considered the site would be so poorly located to be considered unsustainable. So in terms of the landscape impacts, the site is rural in character, although it has been slightly degraded by elements such as the overhead cables and also the overwide access track, which was consented under earlier applications 231399 FUL and 232520 FUL. which is shown on this drawing, both the access and the track, which runs across the site. So the development would be screened in views from the estuary by the woodland that lies to the west of the site, and the roadside hedge running along the eastern boundary of the A376 would also offer some screening to development. The application site occupies the lowest portion of the field, and the land rises beyond that, so the topography also offers some screening. So this is a view looking from the application site. This is the driveway that was put in under the earlier application for the agricultural field access. So the dwellings would be situated off the page, and then the land rises up to the northwest. So it's considered with appropriate screening, the landscape impacts would be acceptable. However, there are concerns regarding the potential for future settlement coalescence should the rest of the site come forward for development. Any further development further north of this site would not be screened by the woodland and would be higher than the road. And it would also result in no clear break between Ebford and the village of Cliff St George, resulting in physical and visual coalescence between the two settlements. There's a view looking back, so Darts Farm is over here, and this is looking back towards the application site. So you can see at the moment it would be screened by the woodland, but development extending further in this direction would potentially be a lot more visible and also result in settlement coalescence. So in terms of the actual site itself, the site is in flood zone 1, and it's also not at risk of surface water flooding, according to the Environment Agency's flood map. The surface water runoff implications of the site would be considered further at technical details consent stage. There are a number of listed buildings in relative close proximity to the site. Number 1 and 2, Ebford Barton, both grade 2 listed buildings, are 100 metres south of the site, and Ebford House, also grade 2 listed, is 185 metres south of the site. But the site topography, the intervening buildings between the site and the listed buildings, and the orientation of the road means there is no intervisibility between this site and those buildings. Therefore, any proposals would not impact upon the setting of those buildings. Devon County Council have highlighted that the site has archaeological potential. Therefore, at technical details consent stage, a programme of archaeological work would have to be agreed. In terms of highways, Devon County Council have confirmed that the visibility is acceptable, but they have expressed a preference that pedestrian footpaths, pedestrian links to the site be improved by putting in a new pedestrian footpath inside the line of the hedge boundary, which again would need to be agreed at technical details consent stage. And this would also have the benefit of improving pedestrian links with the rest of Ebford going north. So in terms of the amount of development, this is the rather over-wide access into the site at the moment. The scale of development is commensurate with the scale of development around it in terms of the bungalows along Ebford Lane, which sit to the side south of the site. And it's likely that accommodation could be provided with sufficient separation distances with no impacts to residential amenity. There are a number of existing trees and hedge boundaries around the south of the site. So again, any technical details consent application coming forward would need to be accompanied by a tree survey and arboricultural impact assessment. So in terms of the impacts of the development, in terms of the negative impacts, the development would lead to the outward expansion of the village into the countryside. Apologies for the spelling mistake in this slide. In terms of the positive impacts, the landscape harm could be mitigated by appropriate boundary treatments and landscaping at technical details consent stage. The site is considered to be in a sustainable location as defined by the previous appeal history. The scale of development is considered appropriate and would not lead to settlement coalescence. And in terms of the application in presumption in favour of sustainable development means there are no adverse impacts that would outweigh the benefits of the increase in the housing supply. So the recommendation is one of approval. Conditions cannot be applied at permission in principle stage, and further matters such as design, landscaping, highways, drainage, archaeology, ecology and tree protection would need to be fully considered at technical details consent stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. Just a reminder that we're only looking at the principle of the application at the moment, not at any kind of detail. I noticed one of the objections, for instance, was that bungalows would be preferable to two-storey homes, but at the moment we have no details on that at all. So, who would like to start us off? It's your ward, Councillor Howard. So,
I'd be hypocritical if I didn't start this one off and also start by saying, as much as I don't like it, you know, again, we are in the situation we are. I will recommend approval as per officer's recommendation because I have no other choice.
okay. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Barlow.
Yeah, again, you can say you don't like it, you can say you don't think it's right, but at the end of the day, it's there. The tilted balance rears its ugly head again, and we don't have a local plan put in place at the moment. So until that happens, both of those things happens, we will be carrying on doing this, no doubt.
Yeah, I think a lot has changed since that inspector's decision. I don't know if they realised how much was going to hinge on that in defining Epford as a sustainable location. But I've just done a quick Google Maps on it, and it's a bit over a mile down to Topsham. And I know there is pavement all the way from the George and Dragon down to Darts Farm and Topsham, and at least part of it I think is cyclable. So yeah, it's not far from Topsham. Okay, so any more speakers on this one? I think Micah summed it up for all of us. Not particularly keen, but nothing in terms of the principle that we can refuse it on, particularly given the inspector's view that it is a sustainable location. So all in favour? I think that was unanimous. So you might even be home in time for an early lunch, everybody. Thank you very much for your attendance this morning. Thank you to our public speakers. Thank you to anybody watching online. And enjoy